the official meeting part 2 for the Stephen King podcast. Introducing myself, Jeremy. So we'll be talking about all things Stephen King, fan theories, how his different books relate to each other. And then also to Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, if that's what you're interested in. Turn it over to Christy.
Hey everybody, Christy here. I've also got Ponyo here. Anybody who is a fan of Miyazaki or Studio Ghibli or just the movie Ponyo, that's her namesake. She's joining us tonight, or at least for some of it. Yeah, move on to Thomas.
Hi, I'm Thomas, and it is almost Christmas, so I'm sporting my Effer's New Groove Llama Enthusiast Christmas sweater.
It's so nice.
For our any subscribers, you might be confused from the beginning of the last episode, which made it seem like this might be a Brandon Sanderson podcast, but we lied. You misunderstood because we lied.
We're keeping you on your toes.
We tricked you.
Tricked us.
Tricked ourselves too, yeah.
So where are you guys at in terms of the stand?
Well, oh, please no.
We're holding hands. That's the point I'm at.
Holding hands. Oh, there she goes.
The end
She's
of
left us.
stand.
Yeah.
The end, yes. Well, I know both of you are at the end. So I am on 50.
Nice.
Some of those chapters are quite long. Like you keep reading and reading and reading, and you're like, oh my gosh, where's the end?
I think there was one chapter in particular. I think it's the interactions between the kid and Trashcan Man. And I remember running through it, and I swear that one chapter was like 300 pages, or
it's, let's see.
I think it was 100. That one with the kid.
Yeah, that's chapter 48. That starts on 575, and it ends on. Oh wait, never mind. Yeah, here we go. That ends on 627. So not quite 100, but I mean
close.
Well, it was a big chapter, and then I think 47 was like kind of the same too. It was also a really big chapter. But I'm on 50. Slowly chugging along here.
Nice.
I say that like it's a chore, but it's not.
Yeah.
At this moment, I realized I left my copy of the stand over there.
Oh no.
The nightstand.
I have my wine.
The stand on the stand.
Oh.
So
I thought you said coffee at first. You said copy. Okay, copy of the stand.
Oh.
I got it.
I am now realizing I don't have coffee. That's fine. I'm an adult.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
You can get it if you want to grab it.
50. Oh gosh. Okay, so
has the kid done the thing with the
kid? The kid has come in and left us so quickly, just as quickly as he has come into the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rough read.
Right.
The kid was.
Yeah. That was bad. I was. So I have the book, but when I'm like in the office or working and on lunch, I'm just pulling up like a digital copy. And I was reading this part while I was at work, and I was like, I feel like I shouldn't even. I came upon it, and I was like, I have to stop. Like, I'm not even done with my lunch break, but I don't feel like I should even continue because this feels. I mean, it's obviously not safe for work, but I was like, what if somebody comes up behind me and they like happen to glance at a sentence or a few words. Yeah.
Right.
So I had
There's
to
a lot of
continue.
content that could be questionable there, so you're on it for a
Yeah.
lot of pages.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was about as it was probably worse than the child orgy in it. Because at least all of that was consensual in a very weird way, but it was all consensual and there were no guns going into orifices.
Right. Well, I was gonna me and Thomas briefly discussed this a little bit.
Yeah, I
I
do remember you
remember
guys sort of had a short little meeting about it.
on Reddit, whenever anyone brings up Stephen King, invariably they always want to reference that scene with the little kids in the sewer from it.
Right.
Or
Anybody who doesn't know really much
yes,
about Stephen King, they're like
uh-huh,
always like, but that orgy in it. And you're like,
mhm,
okay, yeah, it's weird, it's gross,
mhm,
but there's more to all of Stephen King than just that.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
you also don't want to be in the conversation justifying a child orgy because you read
right,
that's
it.
true.
right.
That's also true.
I felt like when I talked with Thomas about it, though, for both for that scene from it specifically, Thomas had a really good explanation for why it was in there. Um, which I thought about it and I was like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Um, Thomas, did you want to talk
Yeah,
about
Well,
this?
I'm
I
actually
I think
I'm super curious because I think about that a lot.
I try never to be caught quoting myself. That was hard to say. Caught quoting
Mm,
myself because I will invariably be wrong. But I think what I was saying about it was that it's there because the only thing that can get them through the horror of it is some type of innocent bond together, and that's kind
mm,
of the only
Like
like
each
medium they have.
other and yeah.
And then
mm,
like the intrinsic horror that like it is still horrible, the thing that's happening. Um, and I
hmm.
think those are kind of the two angles that Stephen King was going about it. Um,
Right.
Yeah, I can
that
see
like
that.
that situation, like that is what gets them through their interaction with the monster when they're in such a vulnerable state, is that
Hmm.
they have this like thing together. Um,
Right.
but
Yeah,
it's
and
supposed to
there's
be terrible too.
yeah.
Like it in itself is its own unique type of horror that like that's what was necessary for them to even retain their sanity in that situation.
Hmm.
Mm,
Um, and it's interesting because what happens with the kid and Trash Can Man is kind of the exact opposite of that.
Oh yeah.
It's hugely predatory. It's unsafe. It's not consensual. There's guns
Yeah.
in assholes, or gun in
God,
asshole, singular.
God, yeah. Well, thank God it was just one, but it's a 45 too, by the way. A 45 is huge.
And I don't know if I felt this way when I read it initially. I haven't really thought on it much, but I was like, is that a thing that Stephen King like represents like gay guys as predatory? I wonder if that was like the
mm.
mindset of the 80s, because I don't think so, because he's very
I don't
forward
No,
think
thinking.
so.
no,
Um,
no. Because think about it, like the beginning of it. Don't they attack the
Oh
guy on
yeah.
the bridge because he's gay, and then he's
oh, that's
displaying that in a
right.
very negative light. So
Yeah, I forgot
I
about
I
that
I
scene.
definitely, as far as I know, he doesn't lean that way at all.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't feel like it. Wasn't there somebody else in the stand that is gay, or did we just
oh,
was it just that one guy I
uh,
don't even remember his name. I don't even know if he had a name, but it was God, I'll have to go back. Oh wait, no,
is it?
I took a note on my phone. It was the sort
This
of
is ringing
the
a bell.
rambling ramblings of this delirious guy who's dying from the super flu basically,
Mm.
and it's where I saw the sort of the reference to it before it even existed because
Oh,
it's
Hi Ho
got
Silver.
Hio Silver away. Um,
Yeah, that's right.
that
We
was
were
on
discussing that.
chapter that was 31, 260. I don't know if the guy was even named. But he helped like Randall Flagg with something, didn't he? Like it was such a brief like moment in just the entirety of the book that it's, you know. But I think the only reason it sort of has stayed with me is because of that mention of Silver, which was kind of interesting. Let me see, what was his name? But he was gay because he was like seeing Christopher Bradenton is his name. And he was like totally delirious, dying. And he's like seeing Randall Flagg, I think, as this sort of apparition that is like this very attractive young man, and he's like completely turned on, and then he realizes that it's Randall. I think that's how that whole scene goes. But he wasn't predatory. He was also dying too, but
yeah, and I
that
remember
character
him
was
like
not
going
predatory.
through it. Yeah.
What I like about Thomas's analysis of the scene from It is he's the first person I've come across that expressed that. Whereas if you go on to say like Reddit, it's very much just like, ew, so freaky. Why did he do that? He's a super creep. Da da da.
Right, yeah, he's a weirdo. He likes child pornography and
That's
like
interesting
child
because I've
Right.
never looked it up
like
online to see what other people's opinions. And I'm kind of surprised, not surprised that the internet's manifesting that way, but like, why? I feel like my first response to reading something like that is like, whoa, why is this in here? Like, it's
Yeah.
because it's not just like, you don't get your jollies off that way. Like, you don't like, that's just,
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
there must be more behind it. There must be a reason. So I guess that's
Right.
why I
Right.
thought
yeah.
about it the way I did. But
And going into the scene with the kid sodomizing Trash, uh
Mhm.
that was my first thought too. I was like, why did he put this in there? Like, that's such a odd thing to place in the novel. But then if you kind of look at it more from like a symbolic standpoint, right? So you've got the gun, right, which is like a symbol of power, right? Like I have a
Mhm.
gun, I can
Right.
make you basically do whatever
My
you're
life
gonna.
is literally like in your hands,
Right,
essentially. Yeah.
right. And it's almost like indicative of how Randall Flagg is running Vegas. It's more like who has the weapons, who has whoever has the weapons has the power, and you're gonna do what I want you to, no matter what. Like I'm, judge, jury, and executioner. And I
Right.
was looking at it more from that perspective, that it was very symbolic of how just that whole Vegas community is run. You know,
Oh yeah,
that
totally.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and then there's uh the part where they crucify that one guy because
Hmm.
he's like a heroin or a cocaine addict.
that really caught me
Um,
off guard that
it
that's why
did.
they were
I
killing
know.
him.
Yeah, that did too. I was like, wow, I kind of feel like not necessarily
Randall Flagg
that
would be like, yeah, like
drugs would
whatevs.
be necessarily celebrated and encouraged, but just like whatever. If that's your thing, that's your thing. Let it be. I don't care. Everybody, if everybody's that, yeah, that was really shocking to me
That
as well.
really made me reconsider who Randall Flagg was and what he was doing, because that really made me
Yeah,
see that he's not just trying to create chaos. He's trying to do something. He's
he's
trying
got a
to end these people. He needs it to
specific
be organized.
specific plan. Yeah. And without the organization, like it's never going to happen because the
You don't
people
get
that
things
he's
done with chaos.
gathered, right, the people that he's gathered, I feel like without a organized sort of leader like Randall Flagg just thrive in chaos anyway, like by themselves if left to their own devices maybe. So, I don't know. That's
And
like
that makes me
Lloyd.
think about Trash Can. because he's obviously crazy. And it's weird that you have that scene with him with the kid where you're feeling bad for him. Because like that, I remember that being my main thought was like, even though like Trashcan's crazy and is clearly like,
but he also
Randall
like kind
Flagg
of
has plans for him.
Right, was never given a chance as a kid, even basically.
Yeah, and then to have this terrible experience happen where he feels so unsafe, the most unsafe he's ever been, even when he's like subject to his own fires that he's created. Like, I think it kind of humanizes the negative side of the book too, like the bad guys in the book, to show that, you know, trauma affects everyone.
Yeah, I was gonna say Trashcan Man feels very childlike to me. Does that make sense? Does he feel kind
No,
of like
absolutely.
juvenile?
Yeah.
And I felt like that paralleled. I mean, I could be wrong here, but it felt like it paralleled Smeagol, and Smeagol feels very juvenile and kind
He's
of
got
like,
some definitely some childlike qualities about him as well.
yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, that does parallel too, that like, you know, you got to see Smeagol in this light of when he used to be like, you know, a hobbit, and he wasn't,
yeah,
you know, the terrible monster that the ring has made him out to be.
hmm
You know, we see that a little bit in Lord of the Rings, and it's almost like this is that scene for Trashcan Man. Like, even though it's horrible, it makes us think of him as a human who doesn't deserve to have this happen to him.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. And when he finally gets to Vegas and he's got basically all these like warm and fuzzy feelings that he's having because he's finally like he feels accepted finally. He keeps having these moments where he's thinking, "Oh, they're just going to laugh at me," or "Oh, they're just going to poke fun at me," or remember, not that these people would remember, but remember the things that I've done in my past, like burning that lady's pension check or
pension,
Pension
burning
yeah,
check,
down
yeah.
pension check,
he
yeah,
always refers back to that, or burning the church down or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
um but you know, then he faces these people and they're just so accepting of him, uh so it almost makes you feel good. That's kind of how I was
yeah,
feeling. I was like,
yeah,
because when you I feel like everybody has had those moments where they don't feel accepted in some way, right? And then you sort of find that group or that person, and it does give you warm and fuzzy feelings. It makes you feel really good, and so you can identify with that even if you can't identify with who these people are and what they
yeah,
sort of stand for.
And I can definitely identify with like feeling guilt and being like, oh, if only these people, like, if they really knew me, or like, what about these like things I've done? And it has no connection with the people that you're meeting or interacting with. Like, that's its own kind of feel good, that like you can get away from yourself, but like you still have that like guilt mixed in. That's relatable.
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
Um, another thing that I was gonna bring up is a lot of people complain about the length, especially the uncut version. I looked it up.
Yeah,
I
it's
was
like
like,
400 pages longer, I think, or
I believe so.
something like that.
He didn't add back in everything that was cut, so some was left out permanently. Um, and but I kind of feel like the reason why it's his longest book, I feel like he did that on purpose. So if he was drawing all these parallels between this and Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the
Hmm.
Rings is this monster epic that was supposed
This
to be
great
all
epic,
one
yeah.
book,
Right.
um,
But
I felt like,
was it I think that was published in 3 installments though, wasn't it? Lord of the Rings, technically.
I believe
Well, I mean, I
so.
guess if you buy the books, they are in 3 different. It's this one big epic, but they are in 3 books
Oh,
technically.
oh,
So,
sorry. I thought it was like intended to be like one giant book. Sorry.
Well, I think Tolkien. No. I think you're right. I think Tolkien intended
Oh.
it to be one big book, but it was so large, and I think they were actually published first in not as a book. Maybe I'm totally
Huh.
misremembering this. But it was so much and so long. It was published into 3, I guess. I think part of that is right.
Huh. Okay.
How'd you like to
Okay.
be the editor sitting down with Tolkien and being like, we can't fit
We can't do this. This is too much.
9,000 pages or whatever it is in a
Tolkien's
magazine.
like, no, make it
sir."
happen. It must be as it is. It's perfect.
Let me see.
Smokes his pipe or whatever. Checks his pocket watch.
Yeah. Split it into 3. I don't know. I won't cut anything out. I think you're right though, that he intended it to be one big epic.
Yeah.
Did you guys read the beginning of this? The like opening
the very
where Stephen
beginning,
King
like,
talks about like why he
don't-
published this uncut version?
Yeah. Wait, is that where there's the part where it says like read before you buy and read after you buy or something like that?
Yes.
A preface in 2 parts. That's to be read before purchase. And then I think there's a to be read after, but I don't even see it. But I did read
purchase,
that.
yeah.
I thought it
Before and
was
after purchase.
there were parts of it that actually had me laughing. Oh yeah, I totally skipped over that part 2 to be read after purchase. I think he even says in that where people are probably thinking I just want more money, so I published this again. But then he goes into why he actually decided to.
Yeah, so it's like the second or third to last paragraph where he says, "So here is the stand constant reader as its author originally intended for it to roll out the showroom."
Mm-hmm. I did some quick Googling and then pasted it in the chat. You guys can take a look, but it basically says, according to Tolkien's private letters, he did not envision or create Lord of the Rings as a 3-part saga. Instead, the entire story from Bag End to Mordor was penned as a single giant tome.
Right. Yeah.
To be followed by a second work.
The Silmarillion. Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
That makes sense.
So, but yeah, I was just like, if he's patterning the stand off of that, it made sense to me that he was like, I'm gonna make this my longest book ever. So,
right. It actually says divided into 6 books.
So what were the other
What were
3?
The 6? So the 3 are the Fellowship of the Ring, the 2 Towers, and the Return of the King. So if you go out and buy, you can't do like you can probably buy a large, almost like this book that is like the Lord of the Rings, but then it's going to be split up into 3 separate books that are titled those 3 books. Or you can go buy a set, which like I've actually got a box set where it's got all 3. So they're still you're still going to find them split up into 3 different books, like actually published that way. So I'm curious what the 6 books are, like where those were cut
dividing
off,
points
like
are,
where it stopped, where it started for each of those.
Because I think it is kind of like how Stephen King did The Stand, where it's 3 books.
It is.
Book
It
1
is
is
3
one
books.
part, and I think he does that
right.
with it as well.
Does it?
Or at least
is
has
it
large
2?
dividers.
Yeah.
I think it's like part 1 and part 2.
Right, because part 1 would be their kids, part 2 is their adults, and it sort of flashes back to them as kids, but that's true.
But yeah, I wonder if it's like the Fellowship has like 2 book like separation, and so does the Two Towers and the Return of the King.
Yeah, it must, which is interesting.
Hmm.
Huh, that is interesting.
I'm just nodding and pretending that I know about Lord of the Rings. I'm like,
It's okay.
they're
We will teach you.
We'll get there in future episodes of the Hot Book Sluts.
I was just like, I hope I'm reading all this correctly. I was like, what is Bag End? What does that
Bag
mean?
End to Mordor and
Wonder
back
what the
again.
separations are in the Stand. I guess the beginning is like the plague, Captain Trips.
Right. That's
And
all. That's all. The plague and the effects of it, or
Yeah.
the
Like,
immediate aftermath of it, I guess, or just kind of going through it and the immediate aftermath, and then part 2 or book 2 is
everybody coming together, I think, is
coming
book 2.
together,
Yeah.
right? And how they're forming groups and societies, basically new societies.
mhm.
And then
And
book
then
3
I
will
haven't
probably be Showdown.
Showdown, right? Because I haven't gotten to book 3 quite yet, but that would make the most sense. Which is interesting because Return of the King is not that there's not battles throughout, but that's the main. Obviously, it's the third, it's the final installment. That's the main showdown where it happens, right? It only makes
Yeah.
sense, just natural progression. But hmm.
Hey, Trash, what did the old Semple lady say when you torched her pension check?
The
Harley
old
Yates.
lady Semple.
I feel like that line's in there like so many times.
It
I love it.
is old lady
Yeah.
Semple's pension check.
That poor lady. That poor lady.
She never got her money.
Mm-mm.
Sad.
I also remember getting to the parts with Trash and being like, all right, buckle in. Like it's going to be long-winded and weird.
Truly. Oh man, the description of his arm being burnt and and slowly healing. I mean, that was painful to read as well. I was almost imagining my own arm being burnt to a crisp.
I feel like he was trying to go into so much detail with how he was messing himself up to show like his like obsession with destruction. Like
Yeah.
he could just live a normal life, but he's got to blow up all these, gas tanks and like everything around him, and he's.
Right. He wants to just watch the world burn. Well,
Yeah,
Randall Flagg does, and he's all too happy to participate.
yeah.
But yeah.
I hesitate to talk about it because I can't remember if you're there. I feel like you are, though. There's like a scene of him leaving a site that he burns down, and I think he like the fire starts before he's like ready, or he's
Oh, yeah.
on one of the drums that he's exploding longer than he should be because he kind of gets lost in like his own reveries and the excitement of what he's doing and his own insanity, and then ends up like having to flee and injure himself, and that's why
Mhm.
he's so close to the fire when it goes off. It's just so
Right.
interesting to see his madness manifest
Yeah.
that he can't even keep it together long enough to really realize his own dream of burning. Like that's how crazy he is. Like
Right.
he's destroying himself on accident while committing these
Yeah.
acts, but still
Yeah.
like not doing it. It's so far from even being an option. He wouldn't even consider it.
Right.
Like it's never like, oh man, I wish I had planned this better. He's like, oh, the fire's about to start.
Oh
Like,
gosh.
run away.
I think I've already read through that part. I mean, unless it happens again,
Mhm.
which I wouldn't be surprised if it does. But that's basically how he gets his whole
Mhm.
arm
Mhm.
burned.
And
Because well,
yeah.
he had a I think it was either 6 or 9 tanks.
Yeah.
And he set like a little explosive device of some sort for each of them, but on a timer of sorts. So, when he lit it, it wouldn't immediately catch fire or explode or whatever. And the last one, they're very crude. So he doesn't set it, like it goes off way sooner than he ever meant to make it go off, and I think it explodes, and it like explodes on his arm and catches fire, and that's how he. But I think he was lost in reverie over the fire in general, and then he just falls asleep in the park, and he can feel the heat of the flames, and then he wakes up and he's like, "Oh, it's even warmer now. The flames are closer." I guess I'll just keep moving. I don't
And
know.
I like the mentions where like you see people, they're like, "Hey, did you go past Gary, Indiana?" And they're like, "If you could even say it's there anymore," like blew up. Like...
Right. It doesn't exist. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Trashcan Man is just like dragging his carcass across the desert.
Aw, or
I mean,
trash.
truly. Oh. Um. Okay, so I remember a while ago, Jeremy, you mentioning um there's a tunnel, right? We see one tunnel early on, but there's 2. Yeah. Yeah. So that's Trashcan Man. He comes across the tunnel in the mountains.
I I feel like this might sound weird. I'm just gonna throw this out there though. Um, if he modeled the stand after Lord of the Rings and it's supposed to take place in modern day, from my expert knowledge of Lord of the Rings, they go into they go into a lot of caves, question mark, and fight spiders and stuff, question mark.
There is
There's the Mines of Moria in the
there's the
Fellowship.
Mines of Moria. There are no spiders in that one. There is the Balrog and all the orcs. I haven't read the books in a while, so I'm really only remembering the movies, which are pretty accurate, but I know not everything is in them.
Okay.
I believe there is actually only one moment where they are in like a cave / tunnel, and there is a giant spider.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she loves Lair at the end.
Yes.
I almost wondered if he was kind of using tunnels in the stand as kind of a stand-in for caves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
could see that.
because it feels like, they're battling wolves instead of spiders, instead of going into
Oh, that's right, the
caves, they're
wolves.
going
Yeah,
into
yeah.
tunnels. It felt very similar to me,
Yep.
um and then also to kind of go along with your point, um, at the very outset, before he even begins the novel, he's like, "Hey, this is the extended cut. I'm going to introduce you into the kid. You're going to see the second tunnel scene, which bookends the first tunnel scene." So he was very aware with how he was laying it out. Like he made sure you knew, like, hey, there's 2 tunnel
Oh,
scenes here.
I don't think I
Just
remember that.
yeah, at
Interesting.
the very, very beginning, he says, "Hey, I'm gonna introduce you to the kid. He's crazy." Also,
He's a
you're gonna
crazy
see
dude.
the second tunnel scene, which bookends. He says something. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, it's been I almost don't even remember
Hmm.
uh what was written in a very vague sense. I remember what was written
Yeah.
at the very beginning, but I don't remember that detail, I should say. Interesting.
I remember reading that and I was like, okay, so he's very aware of how it's all laid out because he wanted two tunnel scenes and then you got the prison scene with Lloyd, but then there's a second one that's extremely similar. So it's
Right.
like as far as I know, that's the only book he has where he kind of does that, where he parallels the scenes several times. So I was trying to figure out
Right.
why he did that, why he had those parallel scenes.
That's interesting. I don't know. I think this is the only, well, okay, I guess the only scene that I've sort of noticed that is a parallel.
Mhm,
But they are both uh like one was the good side and the other was the
mhm.
bad side, basically. Experiences of
Oh,
both sides. Well, at least the tunnel, because you have Larry, who at least so far in the story is on the good side and heading
yeah.
towards Mother Abigail, um,
Oh,
experiencing the tunnel, and then you have Trash, who is on the bad side,
mhm.
experiencing this tunnel.
Oh,
Um, it was also interesting when Trash gets to the tunnel. Um, King even parallels what Larry might have done, or well
mhm,
did, because he did go through it,
mhm.
and because Trash is a different man than Larry is, how Trash feels about the tunnel,
Yeah, yeah.
and how they are approaching them in different ways, which was very interesting to read,
Hmm.
to have that actually like written out for you. Not that you couldn't draw your own conclusions about it, but I just thought that was interesting that in the
Oh,
moment of Trash seeing this tunnel and thinking about going through it, he also has Larry's experience of it too.
yeah. Okay. I until you just mentioned that, I didn't even put those two pieces together, where it's like the first tunnel scene is the good guy, the second tunnel scene is the bad guy.
Right,
But then, I mean, that would line up with the dual prison scenes then.
right. That's
Pretty,
kind of what I assumed, because it would make the most
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that really does.
You're trying
Huh.
to parallel both sides,
Yeah.
and how
Mm,
each side is going to react to similar situations
yeah.
just based
That's
on their
interesting
own
because
their
Larry
own
goes through it
character.
and it
Yeah.
changes him. You know, it kind of like
Yeah.
pushes him towards like this kind of panic mode that he hasn't ever experienced before. Whereas, Trash isn't willing to go through it and he goes back and just hopes that everything solves itself. And that's kind of what ends up committing him even more so to Randall Flagg, is that
Yeah.
like now he has to be saved because like he didn't take the opportunity to face the fear and go out himself.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Now he's
Interesting.
relying heavily on Randall Flagg and the dream that he had about the kid's demise. Uh so he's putting his faith in him even more than he was before he came upon the tunnel. Yeah, ooh, that's good. I like that. That is true.
Excellent, excellent analysis from all sluts involved.
We're
Excellent slot
sluts on points
analysis.
today.
Yeah, we are on point today.
Sluts on point, sluts on ice. We do it all.
Ooh,
Sluts on ice.
ooh, on
Is that like
ice.
the podcast on ice
Oh
while we're ice
yeah.
skating? I can't ice skate to save my life.
I can't ice skate either. This might be really entertaining.
For everybody
Jeremy,
else,
are you
not
a
for you.
fabulous ice skater? Because that would be cool.
I can ice skate. I'm not fabulous though.
You did live in Canada. Did you play hockey?
Yes.
Ah, you did. Does
Uh,
everybody in Canada
uh,
play hockey?
yes, it's true. We all did. They like force you.
What else are we going to play? The hacky
To
sacks
be a
freeze before they
citizen,
hit
you
the
have to
ground.
play hockey.
Pretty much. Um, I
Oh,
totally
man.
lost my train of thought.
I
Oh,
know, I did too.
can the next episode be like Slutty Santa edition?
Yes, let's do it.
I don't have a slutty Santa
I don't know how
sweater. It's
I'm
all
gonna
llamas.
accomplish
I have
that.
other sweaters that are also llamas.
Also, typically, I feel like typically sweaters are by default not sexy, slutty.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Except for yours.
Don't look.
How has Justin reacted? That's the question.
Erotically.
If only you had seen what happened before
Aha!
the podcast recording began.
Oh no.
It was all llamas and sensuality.
All llamas.
Mhm.
We're gonna have to put a X rating on this one.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, that's sorry to interject, but as I was posting the first episode to the YouTube channel, there's this little radio button, like this little selector, and it's like, is this content for children? Is this content not for children? And I was like, definitely not for children. And I
Yeah.
like clicked on it.
I mean, we're certainly not gonna be, well, I shouldn't say gonna be, but in the last one and so far in this one, we're certainly not as terrible as some could be. But we did
Yeah.
talk about guns and assholes, so that's definitely not children appropriate.
Yeah.
I think in a like PG rating, you can't even say sodomize once. So we've already
Yeah.
Right.
We're breaking all the rules.
Yeah, remember our transcript puts stars for slut too, so.
Oh, yeah. Oh, in the transcript it said slot. It just changed it to
Oh.
slot.
Sloth.
It keeps changing it to slot like over and over.
What
Yeah.
do you think about it? Slot's not better.
It's really not. Yeah, it's just a euphemism or a, it's just another word for it.
Now it's not even doing the stars. Now it just says
Just
slot every
Everything
time.
is
It's refusing to transcribe us.
That's like trying to text and it says, what does the iPhone autocorrect to? Shirt. I don't know.
Boo.
Duck. Oh, that's what it was. It was always duck.
Huh. Maybe I'm not saying it clearly enough.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. It was like, is it
My phone's given up. It does what I want now.
the accent that I probably have to some people? I don't know.
Slut. No, it's still slut or slot.
Even if let me pull up the transcript. Even if I said, did it say sloth?
At one point it did.
Oh no,
say
it did.
sloth.
Okay, so it did pick up
Yeah.
sloth. Okay.
How does it do with sodomize?
Hot book sloths.
Hot book sloths.
Yeah.
That's the best name ever.
If you catch me on the weekends, you could say that's true.
Nice.
But it allowed sodomized, so that's allowed.
It did, yeah. Probably because that's not a.
It does have a clinical feel to the word.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not a slang term for anything. It's actually like more of a clinical or official word.
True.
Hot book harlots is kind of fun to
Oh.
say.
Ooh.
It allowed that. It did
Yeah.
allow that.
Interesting.
It has a nice ring to it.
Hmm.
I guess it's because it's the H's.
Yeah. Hot harlots. Hmm.
Spinner on it.
Oh.
So I feel a little bit dumb for maybe not catching this earlier. I mean, we haven't, at least so far, I haven't come across Nadine too much. But I do remember a part early on when we first are introduced to her, and well, she's got the hots for Randall Flagg, basically. just come across that part where she's been waiting and waiting and waiting, and she doesn't really know why, and yet part of her does know why, you know. But when we first meet her, she does talk about waiting to come across him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I first read that, I was like, I don't know what
No,
that means.
no, you're yeah, so I was confused by that as well.
Mhm.
Um, but and Thomas, feel free to chime in, but I feel like that's definitely addressed later on what that means.
Oh, you're
When
supposed to read that and remember that you don't really get it, that like it's
yeah,
not fitting in.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Right.
then
She
mhm,
that part almost made her feel I almost had this thought when we're first meeting her and she's talking about she's waiting for him or the man or I don't remember the wording, but I almost felt like she was almost otherworldly and like she's not from this earth almost.
Yeah,
Kind
there's
of.
definitely like an aspect where she is like
Yeah.
part of some like supernatural
oh,
system that is
one, yeah.
Yes, I thought
present.
she
Yeah.
and because Joe was so strange, his behavior, um, I also kind of felt, okay, well, these two both are like supernatural beings of some sort because it just didn't make any sense. I wasn't quite connecting what she meant by that early on. And then I'm reading, she's been waiting and she's had moments where she could sort of give herself away, but something in her told her to wait because she's waiting for him. And then I realized I was like, oh, I see it now. And she's claiming she's had no dreams, but she's only having dreams of the Dark Man, um, but none of Mother Abigail, whereas everybody else has had both. Um,
That
and
is
Uh,
true.
I
Everybody has had both except for her.
Yes. Is there anybody else who
I can't think of anyone.
I can't think
but
of anything on either. Even Trash has had dreams of Mother Abigail, though he was fearful of her, I think, in a different way than he was fearful of Randall Flagg. Um, but he also wanted to just wants to lay down his life for Randall Flagg, but he doesn't want to do that for Mother Abigail.
yeah, there's I'm not gonna spoil anything, but later on in the book, there's a flashback with her. You know what I'm talking about, Thomas?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay.
it kind of explains like those questions that you have.
Yeah. I mean, I have less of them now that I've come across where she, I think I even again I made a note. There's always these moments where I'm like, oh, I feel like I should mark this down, and I'm actually glad I did, so I can pull it up. So this is sort of what this is when I'm realizing it. I'm like, I don't know how I didn't see that before, but then again, it's pretty vague early on. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, she talks about how her parents and brother were killed in a car accident. But her brother, I guess, was the sort of the favorite because he was theirs while she was adopted. And so she's always, and she even says this, Nadine had always and forever belonged only to Nadine. She was the Earth's child. So she's just her own person, basically. Well, I don't know. Does that make sense?
She she has some sort of weird channel to
Yes.
evil where like evil has like this
Mhm.
weird like just pipe right to her. I
Right.
guess you could say, and it's like
Right.
I think it's always been there, like no matter
Well,
what.
that's kind of what it sounds like she's I don't want to say hinting at, that's not quite the right word, but basically saying when she's talking about sort of her past, and oh, okay, so she talks about this moment where she was 16 and she was with this boy and he was like chasing her in a field and she decided, no, I'm not going to have sex with him because I'm waiting. And she says, oh, a kind of metamorphosis had taken place, a feeling that she must wait. And then it says, and where, and I thought, that's weird. Well, certainly people can sort of can have that feeling, but just it's Nadine, so it was weird.
Yeah, hers definitely had that like edge of supernatural, or
Yes. And
like
then right
otherness
after
to it.
that, right after it says, and where had he been then? Her intended, her dark bridegroom. And I read that and I was like, oh, I know what this is. I know what's happening. I see. And then it actually says it. It's describing him and it's just him. And then finally, he was the other man, the other face, the hard case, the dark man, the walking dude, and his run-down boot heels clocked along the perfumed ways of the summer night. I was like, okay, yeah, that's what you were getting at. It all makes sense now.
Interesting.
I was just realized I hadn't really thought about it before, but I really like Stephen King's worlds because he doesn't try to over explain them. Like he lets the events be supernatural, miraculous, and different, and like
Right.
definitely have the motion of other entities, whether they're God or the devil or spirits, like, but he never outright explains exactly what it is. And I feel like it allows for like the belief in characters like Nadine, who like, how could she have been prepared for this moment outside of like some overarching supernatural battle that was like understood that was going to happen before
Right.
the events of this book even like set in place. And then it made me think like, what are those for the side of good for Mother Abigail, because you don't get to see that as obvious. And I think that's kind of like one of the intrinsic natures of like what is good in like an epic fantasy, is that like faith and the power of love and doing what is right is a subtle, quiet voice thing. So it's less obvious, but I do think that there are counterpoints to Trash Can Man. I think there's counterpoints to Nadine, to Lloyd, uh, and I didn't even start thinking about that until you started talking about like the origins of Nadine and how like she had that mysterious starting point where you don't know who her parents are. She always felt like she wasn't accepted. And
Right.
yeah, I can't wait to like really discuss that more fully when we get to the points of the book where we see them blossom into the roles of what they need to do to champion
Yes.
like goodness and survival and the good traits
Right.
of humanity that the Colorado um denizens are trying to do.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see everybody like you said, sort of blossom into who they're meant to be almost. More so it feels like for Nadine, because it feels like she was only created to be this for this yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thought to have. Which is why she feels so supernatural to me, even though she was born on this earth. Well, seemingly, I don't know, because it says that she's just adopted, so who knows where she actually came from.
Oh, that's actually a good point. I
At
mean,
least so far where I'm at, I don't know, because what does that say? Let me go find it again, because I thought it was interesting.
Like, is there a
I'm
Rosemary's
actually
Babies cult that was like, we made this
yeah,
Nadine
yeah.
cross and away
I'm
she goes?
actually
Like,
sort of not just
hmm,
thinking about the fact that we don't know where she came from really. It says her parents and her brother had been killed in a car accident when she was 6. She hadn't gone along that day to see her aunt and uncle, staying behind instead to play with a friend from down the street. They had liked Brother best anyway. She could remember that. Brother hadn't been like her. Little halfling stolen from an orphanage cradle at the age of 4.5 months. Brother's origins had been clear. Brother had been, trumpets please, their own. But Nadine had always and forever belonged only to Nadine. She was the Earth's child. Which is such an interesting way to put that, because anybody who's adopted, like, that's not how you would think of them. And they were born by two people.
Yeah.
They were created by two people somewhere on this earth, and for whatever reason, they were given up for adoption, and they're adopted, you know.
And I wonder if that made Nadine like
Yeah.
better prey for whatever forces are at work, or Randall Flagg that, like, give her like something that she feels like she was made for a purpose, and like see if that like resonates.
Yeah.
Maybe she's not from Earth.
Yeah. Maybe, I mean, maybe she's not. Maybe it's like, I don't know.
I mean,
it's an interesting thought.
yeah, no, I never picked up on that, like how it's never really clear what her origin is or like where she came from, but maybe he made that very ambiguous because he wants you to
Yeah.
kind of I mean, in the Stephen King universe, like honestly, she might not be from our Earth. Like that is
Right.
possible.
Right, because
Yeah.
what the monster in it is not. There's even
Right.
the
Yep.
the part in
Maturing.
it where it crashes into Earth, and
Hmm.
who is it that has that vision? I don't remember who it is that has that vision of the creature crashing to Earth and millions of years just sort of
Yeah.
sitting in that same spot, and the Earth forming and changing, and it's actually a really cool
Yeah,
moment. I do remember that. I thought that was really awesome. So I don't know, maybe she's something like that.
makes me wonder how much forethought Stephen King had to wanting to do the Dark Tower while he was writing these. Like, did he leave himself room on purpose to like create these arcing connections? Because Randall Flagg is, one of the main antagonists of Dark Tower. So I wonder if his birth here at the Stand was purposeful, like building him to that point.
Yeah, I bet it.
I Oh, sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, well, maybe I shouldn't say I bet it is. Like, that's T. Like, for just had all this planned out, but at least it was a thought of his.
I I would say he has a lot of it planned out because
Yeah.
I may or may not have started Fairy Tale, and
Oh no. Okay. No, that's fair. I'm taking a very long
and
time to read this book.
as I was reading through that, I started picking up on references to Randall Flagg, and I was like,
In Fairy Tale?
yes, yeah,
Okay. I don't actually I have the book, but I'm honestly not even sure what the uh
Premise, yeah, I
synopsis
I
have no
is.
idea.
So,
yeah. When I first noticed like a reference to Flag, I was like freaking out. But then it's like it was the harshest punishment for skipping ahead because I found this connection and then I couldn't share it with anyone.
oh
And I was
no.
like, I deserve this.
Yeah.
I deserve this.
That's always the worst. You
This
want to
is
share it
my
because it's such a good
punishment.
find. Yeah.
I've
I,
been
I
distracting myself with Lev Grossman's The Magician series again and rereading it.
um I can say this though, since this is not a spoiler, but I think there's actually a reference to the stand on the cover of Fairy Tale, I believe.
Oh, I
Because
have it
if you
right
look
here. I'm very
look
curious now.
look at the cover, right?
Okay. Let me. Why is this here? Let me see if I
Do
can
you
pull
know where
it
I'm
up.
going with this, Thomas?
I think so. I
Would
think
I be able
so.
to pick it up? You think where I'm at?
I think I think
Gosh, where is
so.
this book? Oh gosh, that's way down there. Okay. I have a
Okay.
whole. I'm no joke. I have a stack of books sitting
Yeah.
I'm
next to me.
imagining
That,
like a Disney like scene in the corner of the witch's house, like all these books stacked up and it's right there at the bottom.
I mean, it's almost there. It's quite tall and wobbly, and they're just all books that I haven't read that I want to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see.
And I could be totally off in regards to this. I could just be totally making this up. Entirely
Oh,
possible.
well, okay. I don't know if maybe it will have sort of more meaning to me later, but
Mhm.
all right. So just first glance,
Yeah.
it looks like an eye, a red eye. I mean, does that not?
Yes,
Look at that.
exactly. Exactly.
That's
Like
what I
if you
thought it
look at
was
it,
until I actually picked it up. I was like, oh,
yeah.
cool,
Right.
weird eye.
Okay.
There's also a wolf or some sort of dog.
Hmm. So
Interesting.
yeah, Randall Flagg in The Stand. So I think it even makes reference. It's like he has like the red eye of Sauron or something, and he can, look out across the land. And then you look at
Yes.
the cover for Fairy Tale, and that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, that
Yeah.
looks like a red eye, but it's like disguised. And then you go deeper into it, and then it starts making other references to him, and you're like, oh, I don't think that was an accident. So,
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, that's exciting.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. So good.
So, um, that is about an hour. That might be
Yeah,
good place to wrap it up.
I think so.
All right, cool. Um, do we have an outro? The last outro was weird.
It was weird. I don't
I
remember. I
oh god,
watched
I
our
don't
video
even
and then didn't finish it.
No,
I
it
don't
was
even
weird
remember. I don't
because
have anything though.
I was just like, oh yeah, you should read Brandon Sanderson, bye, or something like that. So, but I
This
stand
is
by that.
this is a closet Brandon Sanderson podcast.
Seriously, it really is.
One day we'll actually
Yeah.
talk about it. We'll keep you
Okay,
on your
cool.
toes though, so you don't know when.
Yeah. Nice.
Um, I at the end of the last meeting, I was thinking I need to come up with some sort of outro, and I didn't do that. So yeah.
I think we ended with slutisms. Isn't that how we
We
ended the
did.
last?
I don't even remember what I said though.
Well, it was true, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
It
definitely
sounded
I don't know.
accurate.
Maybe
true
it was like
and
keep being
good.
slutty or something like that, which I
Yeah,
stand by that.
yeah,
I stand by that as well.
yeah. Keep being slutty, people.
Yeah, there's no other
Go
way to say it.
go forth and be slutty.
Go forth and multiply.
Slut away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that is the perfect place to end. Okay. Have fun, guys.
Merry
Have a good
Christmas.
break. See
Merry
ya.
Christmas.
Thank you. Bye.